You're a stump that's stopping us from living, my son Liam shouted, holding the beer I bought in the house I paid for. Everyone at the barbecue fell silent, and his wife Olivia smiled coldly. I stood there holding a plate of burgers and felt everything I had built up over the years crumble. They had forgotten who kept them afloat. But I would remind them. Not with words, but with actions. This time I would not forgive. This time they will pay. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you are listening in the comments. The smoke from the grill curled upward, stinging my eyes as I flipped another burger. The sizzle of meat filled the air, blending with the chatter and laughter of the barbecue. Liam's backyard was alive, kids shrieking in the inflatable castle, glasses clinking, and some pop song thumping from a speaker. I wiped sweat from my forehead with the back of my hand, the spatula steady in my grip. This was my rhythm, my place. I'd always been the one to keep things going, to make sure everyone was fed, happy, cared for. I glanced at the house, 2 stories, red brick, wide windows glinting in the May sun. I could still feel the pen in my hand from the day I signed the final mortgage check. My gift to them. My burden. Dad, you're burning those. Liam's voice cut through the noise, sharp and impatient. He stood a few feet away, a beer bottle dangling from his fingers, his polo shirt crisp against his tan skin. His friends, all younger, all louder, clustered around him, grinning like he'd just told a joke. I forced a smile, turning the patties. Just giving them character, son. He rolled his eyes, taking a swig. Yeah, well, we don't need charcoal for dinner. The group chuckled, and I felt their eyes on me. Robert Cunningham, the old man at the grill, good for a laugh. I kept my face neutral, but my chest tightened. I set the spatula down, arranging burgers on a platter, their edges crisp, just how Liam liked them. The platter was heavy in my hands, a quiet reminder of everything I'd carried for him. For them. Olivia glided over, her sundress swishing, her hair perfect despite the breeze. She held a wineglass, her nails tapping against it. Robert, you're a saint for manning the grill, she said, her voice sweet but edged, like a knife wrapped in silk. But maybe let Liam take over? He's got a knack for this. I looked at her, then at Liam, who smirked, leaning against the patio table. I'm fine here, I said evenly. Been doing it for years. Her smile didn't waver, but her eyes flicked to Liam, a silent signal. I caught it, the way they communicated without words, the way they'd started shutting me out. I turned back to the grill, the heat licking my forearms, and tried to focus on the task. But the air felt heavier now, the laughter sharper. It started over something small. I'd mentioned the pool, how the filter was acting up again, how I could cover the repair. A simple offer, like all the others I'd made. Liam's face changed, his jaw tightening, his beer bottle slamming onto the table. The chatter stopped. Even the kids in the bounce house went quiet, sensing the shift. Dad, just stop, he said, his voice low but carrying. We don't need your money. We don't need you hovering over every damn thing. I froze, the tongs hovering over the grill. I was just trying to help, Liam. Help? He laughed, a harsh, barking sound. You're a stump that's stopping us from living. You think we can't handle our own house? Our own life? The words hit like a fist. The backyard fell silent, the only sound the faint hiss of the grill. I looked around, guests staring at their plates, a neighbor coughing awkwardly, my grandkids clinging to Olivia's legs. She stood there, her lips curled into a cold, satisfied smile. Liam, don't get worked up, she said, her tone dripping with false concern. But, Robert, he's not wrong. You do overstep. My hands tightened on the tongs, the metal biting into my palm. The platter of burgers sat on the table, untouched, the grease congealing. I wanted to speak, to say something that would cut as deep as his words, but my throat locked. I'd built this house. This life, for them. And now I was a stump. A nuisance. I set the tongs down, my movements slow, deliberate. My face stayed calm, but inside, something cracked. Liam, I said quietly, I've only ever wanted what's best for you. He snorted, turning away, his friends following like a pack. Olivia adjusted her hair, her eyes sliding over me like I was furniture. The guests started talking again, their voices forced, filling the void. I picked up the platter, the weight familiar, grounding. I carried it to the table, set it down, and walked toward my car parked at the curb. The grass was soft under my shoes, the air thick with the scent of charred meat and spilled beer. I didn't look back. I slid into the driver's seat, the leather creaking under me. My hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white. The house loomed in the rearview mirror, its windows glowing with party lights. They'd forgotten who I was. Who I'd been for them. But I'd remind them. Not with words, not with arguments. With actions. This time, they'd pay. The living room was dim, the only light coming from a single lamp on the side table. Its glow caught the edges of the furniture, the sagging couch, the coffee table scarred from years of use, the bookshelf crammed with family photos and old manuals. I sat in my armchair, the springs creaking under me, a cardboard box balanced on my knees. Inside were papers, receipts, memories I hadn't touched in years. My fingers brushed a check stub, the ink faded but legible, final mortgage payment, Liam Cunningham. I'd signed it with a steady hand, proud, thinking it was for him. For us. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that presses against your ears. No music, no voices, just the faint hum of the fridge in the kitchen. Hours had passed since the barbecue, but Liam's words still echoed, "You're a stump that's stopping us from living." I set the check stub aside and pulled out a photo, creased at the corners. Liam, maybe 8, grinning with a model airplane in his hands. I could still smell the glue, feel the stickiness on my fingers as we built it together. "You're the best, Dad," he'd said, his eyes bright. Where had that boy gone? I stood, my knees stiff, and crossed to the window. The street outside was dark, the neighbors' houses lit with warm, soft light. My house felt different, smaller, older, like me. I'd never fixed the crack in the ceiling or replaced the warped floorboards. Every dollar had gone to Liam, to Olivia, to the grandkids. College funds, car repairs, that damn pool they never used. I turned back to the box, digging deeper. A letter caught my eye, scrawled in Liam's teenage handwriting. "Thanks for the bike, Dad. You're my hero." My chest ached, a dull, heavy pain. When did he stop seeing me? The memory came unbidden, me at the factory, the air thick with oil and metal. I'd worked double shifts, my hands calloused, my back screaming, to make that first down payment on Liam's house. I saw myself in the bank, signing the check, sweat beading on my forehead. The teller had smiled, said, "You must be proud." I was. I thought I was building something lasting. I thought it would mean something. I sank back into the chair, the letter crumpling in my fist. Olivia's smile flashed in my mind, cold and sharp, her words slicing just as deep as Liam's. He's not wrong. They didn't just forget my sacrifices, they resented them. Resented me. My jaw tightened, the anger rising hot and fast. I'd given everything, my time, my money, my dreams, and they turned me into a punchline. The phone buzzed on the table, the screen lighting up with my grandson's name. My heart lifted for a moment, but when I answered, his voice was rushed. "Hi, Grandpa. Just checking if you're okay. Mom said you left early." No warmth, no real concern, just a duty call, probably at Olivia's insistence. "I'm fine, buddy," I said, my voice steady. He hung up after 10 seconds, and the silence returned, heavier than before. I opened the box again, pulling out more papers, bills, receipts, proof of everything I'd done. Each one was a weight, a reminder of what I'd given up. I thought love meant sacrifice, that providing was enough. But it wasn't. They didn't love me for it. They didn't even respect me. My fingers stilled on a check stub, the date blurry but the amount clear, $10,000, for Liam's wedding. Olivia had wanted a venue with chandeliers. I'd made it happen. I slammed the box shut, the sound sharp in the quiet room. My hands shook, not from sadness but from something else, something harder, colder. I wasn't their doormat anymore. I wasn't their stump. I stood, the floorboards creaking, and walked to the front door. The night air was cool on my face as I stepped onto the porch, the stars sharp above. In my hand, I held a crumpled flyer for a volunteer event at the community center. I'd ignored it for weeks, but now it felt like a lifeline. A new start. I looked out at the dark street, my breath steadying. They thought they could erase me, but they were wrong. I wasn't done. Not yet. The community center smelled of coffee and chalk dust, the kind of scent that clings to old buildings. I dragged a folding table across the linoleum floor, its legs screeching, my arms straining. The room buzzed with volunteers, people unpacking boxes, taping up posters, laughing over some shared joke. I kept my head down, focusing on the task. It had been 3 days since the barbecue, and Liam's words still burned, but I was here to escape them, not dwell. The flyer had promised a charity fair, a chance to do something useful. I needed that now. Planning a bank heist with that scowl, a voice said, warm and teasing. I looked up, startled, to see a woman with gray hair pulled into a messy bun, her eyes crinkling with amusement. She held a stack of colorful flyers, her sleeves rolled up, a smudge of marker on her cheek. I blinked, caught off guard. Just trying to keep the tables in line, I said, managing a half smile. She laughed, a sound that cut through the noise of the room. Good luck with that. These things have a mind of their own. She set the flyers down and extended a hand. Ellen Martin. Robert Cunningham, I said, shaking her hand. Her grip was firm, her skin cool. I noticed the lines around her eyes, not from age but from smiling, and maybe from something heavier. We got to work, packing boxes with fair decorations, streamers, plastic medals, little flags that would flap in the breeze. Ellen moved quickly, her hands deft, chatting as she went. You new to this circus? She asked, tossing a bundle of ribbons into a box. First time, I admitted, folding a tablecloth. Needed something to do. She raised an eyebrow, playful but sharp. Oh. That sounds like a man running from something. I chuckled, surprised by how easy it felt. Maybe I am. She didn't push, just kept packing, her movements steady. The center was alive around us, volunteers shouting about missing tape, a kid running through with a balloon, the air conditioner humming like a tired engine. I glanced at Ellen, caught her humming softly, something old, maybe Sinatra. She was different from the people at Liam's barbecue, no pretense, no cold edges. I liked that. We fell into a rhythm, our conversation light but real. She told me about the fair, how it raised money for local kids, how she'd been volunteering since her husband passed. Keeps me out of trouble, she said, winking. Then, quieter, and it's better than sitting at home, thinking about what's gone. Her words hit closer than I expected. I thought of my house, the box of papers, Liam's voice. I must have frowned, because she nudged me with her elbow. Hey, no bank heists, remember? You'll scare the kids. I laughed, my face warming. Fair enough. What's your secret, then? You seem okay. She paused, her hands stilling on a box. Okay's a stretch, she said, her voice softer now. My family thought I was holding them back, too. Took me a while to realize I didn't need their permission to keep going. She looked at me, her eyes steady, like she saw more than I'd said. I nodded, my throat tight. I wanted to ask more, but a volunteer called her over, and she flashed me a grin before darting off. I kept working, stacking boxes, my mind turning over her words. Holding them back. That's what Liam thought of me. But Ellen, she'd found a way through it. Maybe I could, too. By the time we finished, the center was a mess of color, posters taped crookedly, tables covered in glitter. Ellen handed me a flyer with her number scrawled on it. In case you want to join the circus again, she said, her tone light but her eyes serious. I took it, the paper soft in my hand. Maybe I will. She smiled, then turned to help someone else, her laughter trailing behind her. I walked out to my car, the evening air cool, the flyer tucked in my pocket. I stood by the driver's door, looking at the center's glowing windows. For the first time in days, I felt something like hope, a small spark in the dark. But then I thought of Liam, his sneer, his house. My house. The spark didn't fade, it sharpened. The waiting room was too quiet, the kind of silence that amplifies every small sound. My fingers tapped against the leather portfolio on my lap, the rhythm uneven, betraying the calm I tried to project. Inside the portfolio were check stubs, bank statements, proof of every dollar I'd poured into Liam's house. The receptionist typed softly, her nails clicking like a metronome. I adjusted my tie, the knot suddenly too tight, and glanced at my phone. No messages. Not from Liam, not from Olivia. Just the time staring back at me, 10:17 a.m., late May, a week since the barbecue that changed everything. The office door opened, and a man in a crisp suit waved me in. Mr. Cunningham? I'm David Reese. Come on in. His handshake was firm, his smile professional but warm. The office smelled of coffee and paper, the desk cluttered with legal books and a single pen that gleamed under the fluorescent light. I sat, the portfolio heavy in my hands, and opened it, spreading documents across the glass table. Each paper was a memory, signing the mortgage, wiring money for repairs, covering Liam's debts. My life's work, reduced to ink and numbers. Reese leaned forward, scanning the papers. You've been generous, Mr. Cunningham. Very generous. His tone was neutral, but his eyes flicked to mine, curious. What exactly are you looking to do here? I hesitated, my throat dry. The question hung between us, heavy as the checks in front of me. What was I doing? Betraying my son? Reclaiming my dignity? I thought of Liam's sneer, Olivia's cold smile, the platter of burgers no one touched. I want what's fair, I said finally, my voice steady. I paid for their house. I want them to know it wasn't free. Reese nodded, jotting notes. His pen scratched the paper, a sound that felt final, like a door locking. The good news is, your name's still tied to the property. You co-signed the mortgage, correct? I nodded, and he continued. That gives you leverage. We could file a claim for reimbursement or even push for a lien if they refuse to cooperate. A lien. The word hit me hard, conjuring images of Liam's house, my house, with a legal shadow over it. I saw the red brick, the wide windows, the backyard where I'd been called a stump. My chest tightened, not with guilt but with something sharper. What would that mean for them? I asked, leaning forward. They'd have to pay you back or risk losing the property, Reese said, his tone matter of fact. It's not a small step, Robert. You sure you want to go there? I looked at the documents, my signature scrawled on each one. I remembered the factory, the double shifts, the ache in my bones. I remembered Liam as a boy, promising to make me proud. And I remembered his voice, slurred with beer, cutting me down in front of everyone. I'm sure, I said, my voice low but firm. They need to understand. Reese walked me through the process, gathering more evidence, filing paperwork, preparing for pushback. I took notes, my hand steady, the pen digging into the pad. But inside, doubts swirled. Was I the villain here? Was I tearing apart my family? Then I thought of Olivia's smirk, the way she'd said, he's not wrong. No. They'd made their choice. Now I was making mine. We wrapped up, and I stood, shaking his hand. You're doing the right thing, Reese said, his eyes meeting mine. You deserve to be respected. I nodded, the words sinking in, grounding me. I tucked the portfolio under my arm and walked out. The office door clicking shut behind me. Outside, the Chicago air was sharp, the sky a heavy gray. Cars honked, their noise swallowed by the city's pulse. I stood on the sidewalk, the portfolio a weight against my side, and felt something new, control. For the first time in years, I wasn't just reacting. I was acting. I pulled out my phone to check the time, and a message popped up. From Liam. We need to talk. Now. My pulse quickened, but I didn't flinch. They knew something. Good. Let them sweat. I slipped the phone back into my pocket and started walking, the city's rhythm matching the beat of my resolve. They thought they could bury me. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The kitchen smelled of dish soap and coffee, the radio humming softly with some old jazz tune. I stood at the sink, scrubbing a plate, the suds warm against my hands. It was early June, the evening light slanting through the window, casting shadows on the worn linoleum. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet I'd grown used to since the barbecue. Then came the knock, sharp, insistent, like a hammer on wood. I froze, the plate slipping back into the water. My gut twisted. I knew that knock. I dried my hands on a towel, the fabric rough against my skin, and walked to the door. Through the peephole, I saw Liam, his jaw tight, and Olivia, her arms crossed, her purse clutched like a shield. I opened the door, the hinges creaking, and stepped back. They didn't wait for an invitation. Liam stormed in, his shoes scuffing the floor, Olivia gliding behind him, her heels clicking. "Really, Dad?" Liam's voice was loud, cutting through the jazz. He stood in the middle of the living room, hands on his hips, his face flushed. "You're talking to lawyers now? Trying to take our house?" I stayed by the door, the towel still in my hand, my face calm but my heart racing. "I'm not taking anything, Liam. I'm just setting things right." Olivia laughed, a sharp, brittle sound. She stood near the old dining table, her eyes scanning the room, the faded wallpaper, the photo of my grandkids on the shelf, the life I'd built. "Setting things right," she said, her voice dripping with disdain. "Robert, we thought you loved us. Loved your grandkids. And now you're, what, betraying us?" Her words stung, but I didn't flinch. I thought of the portfolio, the checks, the years of sacrifice. "Betraying?" I said, my voice low, steady. "You called me a stump. Said I was in your way. I gave you everything, and you spat in my face." Liam paced, his hands waving. "That house is ours. We live there. We raise our kids there. You can't just..." He stopped, pointing at me. "You're trying to ruin us. You're jealous because we're doing fine without you." I almost laughed. "Fine? Without me?" I remembered the mortgage payments, the car loans, the college funds I'd covered. I stepped forward, the towel twisting in my hands. "You're doing fine because of me, Liam. That house? I paid for it. Every brick. Every window. You forgot that. I'm reminding you." Olivia's eyes narrowed, her fingers tightening on her purse. "You're being selfish," she said, her tone soft but venomous. "What about the kids? You want them to lose their home? You want to break their hearts?" She glanced at the photo on the shelf, her lips curling slightly, knowing exactly where to aim. My chest ached, the image of my grandkids flashing in my mind, their laughter, their small hands in mine. But I held her gaze. "I love them," I said. "But I'm done being your bank. You don't get to use them to guilt me." Liam snorted, shaking his head. "You're pathetic, Dad. Always playing the martyr." He turned to Olivia. "Let's go. He's not worth it." She nodded, her heels clicking as she moved to the door. But she paused, looking back. "You'll regret this, Robert. You're tearing this family apart." Her voice was calm, but her eyes were cold, promising trouble. They left, the door slamming behind them. The jazz played on, oblivious, the notes floating in the heavy air. I stood there, the towel limp in my hands, my breath uneven. They thought they could bully me, shame me into backing down. They were wrong. But the pain lingered, sharp and raw. I'd raised Liam. Loved him. And now he was a stranger. I sank onto the couch, the springs groaning, and pulled out my phone. My thumb hovered over Ellen's number, the flyer from the community center still tucked in my pocket. I dialed, and her voice came through, warm, steady. "Robert? You okay?" "They came to my house," I said, my voice quieter than I meant. "Tried to make me feel like the bad guy." She didn't hesitate. "They're scared, Robert. You're standing up to them, and they don't know how to handle it. You're stronger than they are." I nodded, though she couldn't see it, my eyes on the portfolio across the room. I don't know, Ellen. It's hard. I know, she said, her tone softening. But you know what you have to do. And you're not alone. I could hear her smile, faint but real. I hung up, the phone warm in my hand, and looked at the portfolio again. The documents inside were my leverage, my truth. Ellen was right. I wasn't alone. And I wasn't stopping. The community center was a riot of color, posters flapping on the walls, volunteers bustling with boxes of streamers and balloons. I stood next to Ellen, folding flyers for the charity fair, the paper crisp under my fingers. The air smelled of chalk and coffee, the hum of conversation blending with the whine of a fan. Ellen was in her element, tossing ribbons into a box, her gray hair slipping from its bun. If we don't get these tables set up soon, she said, grinning, this fair's gonna look like my garage. I chuckled, stacking flyers, but my mind was elsewhere. A week had passed since Liam and Olivia's visit, their accusations still sharp in my memory. Ellen caught my eye, her grin fading slightly. You're thinking too loud, Robert. Spill it. I glanced around, lowering my voice. We need to hit them where it hurts. Olivia's obsessed with her perfect image. If people knew the truth about the house, the money, she'd crumble. Ellen's eyes lit up, mischievous. Oh, I like where this is going. Nothing stings like a bruised ego. She leaned closer, her voice a conspirator's whisper. I know a few people in their circle. Discreet, but chatty. What's the play? I hesitated, the flyer creasing under my thumb. I talked to someone they know. Drop a hint about the house, how I paid for it. You work your contacts, plant the same seed. Let it spread. She nodded, her smile sharp. Olivia thinks she's the queen of this suburb. Time to knock off her crown. We kept working, our plan taking shape between stacks of flyers and boxes of glitter. Later, I spotted John, a neighbor who lived a few streets from Liam. He was hauling tables, his shirt damp with sweat. I walked over, casual, the flyers under my arm. Hey, John, I said, handing him a water bottle. You going to that big charity dinner next month? He wiped his brow, nodding. Yeah, Olivia's been talking it up. Says it's the event of the season. His tone was light, but I caught the eye roll. Perfect. Funny thing, I said, keeping my voice even, that house of theirs? I paid the mortgage. Every cent. They don't like to mention it, though. I shrugged, like it was no big deal, but John's eyebrows shot up. No kidding, he said, glancing at me. Wow. I thought they were self-made. I smiled, handing him a flyer. People assume a lot. We moved on, but I felt the spark ignite. John would talk, maybe to his wife, maybe to a friend. The truth would spread, quiet but relentless. Back at the center, Ellen was on her phone, her voice low, teasing. Oh, you know Olivia Cunningham? Lovely house. Did you hear Robert paid for it? Yeah, all of it. She hung up, winking at me. That was Marcy. Runs the book club. She'll have that story at every coffee shop by tomorrow. We finished at the center and walked to a nearby cafe, the air warm with the scent of fresh bread. Inside, the wooden tables were scarred, the walls lined with local art. We sat with coffees, the mugs hot in our hands, and went over the plan. This'll shake her, Ellen said, stirring sugar into her cup. Olivia's built her whole life on looking perfect. One crack, and the whole facade falls. I nodded, but a knot formed in my chest. I don't want to destroy her. Ellen. Just make her see. She reached across the table, her hand brushing mine, warm and steady. You're not the villain here, Robert. They made their bed. You're just pulling back the covers. Her words settled me, the knot loosening. We sipped our coffee, the cafe's hum wrapping around us, and I felt something I hadn't in years, partnership. Ellen wasn't just a friend. She was in this with me, her wit and warmth sharpening my resolve. My phone buzzed, a message from John. Heard Olivia got left off the charity dinner list. People are talking. I showed it to Ellen, my pulse quickening. She grinned, raising her mug. To truth, Robert. And to queens without crowns. I clinked my mug against hers, a smile tugging at my lips. It had worked. Olivia's perfect world was cracking. But as I stared at the message, a shadow crept in. Had I gone too far? Was this justice or cruelty? I pushed the thought aside, but it lingered, heavy as the coffee in my hand. The morning sun filtered through the trees, casting dappled shadows on the lawn. I stood by the front porch, watering the petunias, the hose heavy in my hand. Water sprayed in a soft arc, pooling on the grass, the air thick with the scent of damp earth. It was mid-June, and the suburb hummed with quiet routine, kids biking down the street, a lawnmower droning nearby. I tried to focus on the flowers, their petals bright against the faded paint of the house, but my mind kept drifting to the community center, to the whispers I'd started with Ellen. Had they reached Liam and Olivia yet? Morning, Robert. Tom's voice broke my thoughts. He leaned over the fence, his cap tilted, his smile hesitant. I nodded, turning the hose to a trickle. Tom was a good guy, kept to himself, but always waved. Today, though, his eyes darted, like he was weighing his words. Morning, I said, keeping my tone light. Hot one today, huh? He shuffled, scratching his neck. Yeah, listen, I heard something. People are saying that you're suing Liam. Trying to take his house. That true? His voice dropped, like he was sharing a secret, but it hit me like a slap. I tightened my grip on the hose, water splashing my shoes. My face stayed calm, but my pulse raced. So the rumors had started, not the ones I'd planted about the house, but something uglier. People talk, Tom, I said, my voice steady. You know how it goes. Half of it's nonsense. He nodded, but his eyes lingered, doubtful. Just sounds rough, you know? Going against your own son. He tipped his cap and walked off, leaving me with the hose and a knot in my chest. Liam and Olivia weren't just fighting back, they were twisting the story, painting me as the villain. I turned off the water, the nozzle clicking, and set it down. The petunias glistened, but the morning felt tainted. I needed air, space to think. I grabbed my keys and walked to the park a few blocks away, the suburb giving way to open green. The park was alive, kids shrieking on swings, dogs chasing balls, the air sharp with the smell of cut grass. I spotted my grandkids near the slide, their laughter carrying over the breeze. My heart lifted. I hadn't seen them since the barbecue, hadn't heard their voices except in rushed phone calls. I waved, stepping closer, my smile wide. But they froze. My grandson, Tommy, ducked behind the nanny, his eyes wide. My granddaughter, Lily, clutched her doll, her gaze fixed on the ground. The nanny, a young woman with a tight ponytail, gave me a polite nod but stepped between us. Hi, Mr. Cunningham, she said, her voice clipped. We're just heading out. Tommy, Lily, I called, my voice softer, trying to bridge the gap. It's Grandpa. Wanna play for a bit? Tommy peeked out, his voice small. Mom said you're mad at us. That you don't want us to have our house. Lily didn't look up, just hugged her doll tighter. The words cut deeper than Liam's ever had. I stood there, rooted, the park's noise fading to a dull roar. That's not true, I said, my voice breaking. I love you both. Always will. But they didn't move, and the nanny ushered them away, their small figures shrinking toward the parking lot. A toy car, Tommy's favorite, lay abandoned on the bench. Its red paint chipped. I stared at it, my chest tight, the world blurring at the edges. I sank onto the bench, the wood rough under my hands. They'd turned my grandkids against me. Liam and Olivia weren't just spreading lies, they were poisoning the only family I had left. The pain was sharp, a blade twisting, but beneath it, something harder grew. They thought they could break me. They were wrong. Robert? Ellen's voice pulled me back. She stood a few feet away, a water bottle in hand, her gray hair tucked under a cap. Her eyes softened as she sat beside me, the bench creaking. "You look like you've seen a ghost." I swallowed, staring at the toy car. "They're saying I'm crazy, Ellen. That I'm trying to ruin them. Even the kids, they think I'm the bad guy." My voice cracked, but I didn't look away. She set the bottle down, her hand resting on my arm, warm and steady. "They're scared, Robert. You're shaking their world, and they're lashing out. But they don't get to take your dignity. Not from you." Her voice was firm, her eyes fierce. "You're doing this for a reason. Don't forget that." I nodded, her words anchoring me. "It hurts, Ellen. More than I thought it would." "I know," she said, her tone gentler. "But you're stronger than their lies. You've got truth on your side. And me." She smiled, a small, fierce thing, and I felt the weight lift, just a fraction. We walked back to my house, the park fading behind us. Inside, the air was cool, the living room dim. I pulled out the portfolio, the documents inside crisp and heavy. Ellen sat across from me, her presence a quiet strength. "What's next?" she asked, leaning forward. I opened the portfolio, my fingers tracing the edges of a check stub. "I'm done playing defense," I said, my voice steady. "I'm filing the claim. They'll see what fair looks like." She nodded, her smile approving. I stood, the documents in hand, and moved to the dining table, the wood scarred from years of family dinners. The house was silent, but it felt alive, like it was holding its breath. I spread the papers out, my resolve hardening. This was the only way. The lawyer's office smelled of ink and polished wood, the air cool and sterile. I sat across from David Reese, my glasses slipping down my nose as I pored over a stack of documents. My fingers trembled, not from nerves but from anticipation, the paper crinkling under my touch. It was late June, the city outside buzzing with heat and noise, but in here, time felt suspended, every word on the page a step closer to justice. Reese leaned back in his chair, his tie loosened, his eyes sharp with interest. "Robert, you're going to want to see this," he said, sliding a folder across the desk. His voice was calm, but there was an edge to it, like he'd found something big. I opened the folder, my heart thudding. Bank statements, loan agreements, numbers that didn't add up. My name was there, tied to the house, but so was Liam's, attached to credits I'd never known about. "What is this?" I asked, my voice low, my eyes scanning the pages. The words blurred: collateral, second mortgage, default risk, but the truth cut through like a blade. Reese tapped the folder. "Your son took out loans against the house. Big ones. Used it as collateral without your consent. You co-signed the original mortgage, so he needed your signature. He didn't get it." His tone was matter-of-fact, but his eyes held a glint of satisfaction. "He broke the law, Robert." I leaned back, the chair creaking, my mind racing. Liam had gambled with my house, the one I'd paid for, the one I'd built for him. The betrayal stung, but it was more than that, it was a weapon. A lever I hadn't expected. "How bad is it?" I asked, my voice steady despite the storm inside. "Bad enough," Reese said. "He's behind on payments. If you press this, you could force a sale to recover your investment. Or, you could use it to negotiate. Either way, he's cornered." He paused, studying me. "What do you want to do?" I closed the folder, my fingers lingering on the edge. I saw Liam's face, his sneer at the barbecue, his accusations in my living room. I saw Olivia's cold smile, her lies about me. And I saw my grandkids. Their eyes avoiding mine in the park. The pain was there, raw and sharp, but so was something else, power. "They handed me the key," I said, almost to myself. "I'm going to use it." Reese nodded, jotting notes. "I'll draft a letter to their lawyer. We'll start with a demand for repayment. If they don't comply, we escalate." His pen scratched the paper, the sound final, like a gate slamming shut. I left the office, the folder tucked under my arm, the Chicago heat hitting me like a wave. The city pulsed, horns blaring, pedestrians weaving, but I felt untouchable, the documents a shield. I drove to a cafe Ellen had suggested, a small place with wooden chairs and the warm smell of coffee. She was already there, her gray hair loose, a mug in her hands. Her smile lit up when she saw me, but her eyes narrowed, reading my face. "You look like a man with a secret," she said, leaning forward. "What happened?" I set the folder down, the table creaking under its weight. "Liam took loans against the house. Without telling me. He's in debt, Ellen, and he used my work to do it." My voice was calm, but my hands clenched, the thrill of it coursing through me. Her eyes widened, then sparkled with mischief. "Oh, Robert, you clever fox. They've handed you the whole game." She raised her mug, grinning. "To strategy. And to idiots who dig their own graves." I laughed, the sound surprising me, and clinked my mug against hers. The cafe hummed around us, sunlight streaming through the windows, casting patterns on the scarred table. Ellen's hand brushed mine, her touch light but lingering, and for a moment, something shifted, a warmth, a possibility I hadn't let myself consider. "You're not just a volunteer anymore," she teased, her voice soft. "You're a mastermind." I smiled, but the folder drew my eyes. The loans were a victory, but they were also a risk. Liam was impulsive, Olivia desperate. They wouldn't take this lying down. I slipped the folder into my bag, a letter from Reese tucked inside, its edges sharp against my fingers. "This changes everything," I said, my voice low. "But it's not over." Ellen nodded, her gaze steady. "It's never over until you say it is." Her words hung between us, a challenge and a promise. I stood, the letter in my pocket, and stepped into the heat, the next step already forming in my mind. The community center was transformed, its usual clutter replaced by elegance. Chandeliers gleamed overhead, casting soft light on tables draped in white linen, each centerpiece a burst of flowers. The air buzzed with chatter, the clink of wine glasses, the faint hum of a string quartet. It was early July, the charity auction in full swing, and I stood near the stage, my hands smoothing the lapels of my old suit jacket. The note cards in my pocket were damp from my grip, the words I'd rehearsed looping in my mind. This was it, the moment I'd been building toward. I scanned the crowd, spotting familiar faces, neighbors, volunteers, the suburbs elite in their pressed suits and glittering dresses. Ellen sat near the front, her gray hair swept up, her smile a quiet encouragement. Then I saw them, Liam, his jaw tight, his tie askew, Olivia, her dress flawless but her eyes darting, her hand clutching a small purse like a lifeline. They hadn't expected me here, not like this. "Good." The MC called my name, and the room quieted, eyes turning to me. I stepped onto the stage, the microphone amplifying the creak of my shoes. My heart pounded, but my voice was steady when I spoke. "Thank you all for being here," I said, the words clear, deliberate. "This cause, helping kids, building futures, it's close to my heart. I know what it means to give everything for family." The crowd nodded, smiles warm, unaware of the shift coming. I paused, my fingers brushing the note cards, but I didn't need them. The truth was enough. "I've always believed in sacrifice," I continued, my gaze sweeping the room, lingering on Liam and Olivia. "Like when I paid off my son's house, every cent of the mortgage, so he could have a home for his kids." A murmur rippled through the crowd, heads turning, whispers rising like a tide. Olivia's face drained of color, her purse slipping slightly in her hands. Liam's fists clenched, his eyes burning into mine. I kept my expression calm, almost gentle, but inside, I felt the weight of every check I'd signed, every shift I'd worked. "It wasn't easy," I said, my voice carrying, "but I did it. Because that's what you do for family. You give." The room was alive now, the whispers louder, eyes flicking between me and Liam's table. Olivia stood, her movements jerky, and grabbed Liam's arm, pulling him toward the exit. The crowd parted, their gazes heavy with curiosity, some with pity. Ellen caught my eye, her nod subtle but proud. I stepped off the stage, the microphone still warm in my hand, and the MC took over, his voice cheerful but strained, trying to steer the night back to normal. I moved through the crowd, nods and murmurs following me. A neighbor clapped my shoulder, whispering, "Didn't know you did all that, Robert." Another shook her head, glancing at Liam's empty table. The truth was out, undeniable, and it cut deeper than any lawyer's letter could. Olivia's perfect facade was crumbling, and Liam's pride was in tatters. Outside, the night air was cool, the streetlights casting long shadows. I stood by the curb, the center's glow spilling onto the sidewalk. My breath was steady, but my chest was tight, a mix of triumph and something heavier. I'd done it, spoken the truth, let the world see who they really were. But the image of Olivia's pale face, Liam's rage, lingered. Had I broken something that couldn't be fixed? Footsteps echoed behind me, sharp and quick. I turned, my hand slipping into my pocket, brushing the folded letter from Reese. The night was still, but the sound grew louder, closer. They weren't done with me yet. The living room was dim, the only light coming from the old lamp in the corner, its bulb buzzing faintly. I sat on the couch, the cushion sagging under me, my phone blowing in my hand. The screen showed a post in the neighborhood's online group, Olivia's name bold at the top. Some people would rather tear families apart than let go of their grudges. We're heartbroken. The comments piled up, sympathy, shock, a few vague jabs. I tossed the phone onto a pillow, my fingers rubbing my temples. It was mid-July, and the air in the house felt thick, heavy with the smell of coffee gone cold. The radio played softly, some jazz tune I didn't recognize, but it couldn't drown out the noise in my head. They were fighting back, Liam and Olivia, spinning a new story. Not just whispers to neighbors, but a public campaign to paint me as cruel, obsessed with money. I stood, the floorboards creaking, and paced to the window. The street outside was quiet, the streetlights casting soft pools of light. My house, my small, worn sanctuary, felt like a fortress under siege. I thought of the barbecue, Liam's sneer, Olivia's cold smile. I'd fought for respect, but now? Now I was the monster. A knock at the door startled me, sharp and quick. I opened it to find Mary, a neighbor from down the street, holding a foil-covered dish, her smile hesitant. "Brought you a pie," she said, her voice too bright. "Figured you could use some cheering up." I took the dish, the warmth seeping through the foil. "Thanks, Mary. That's kind of you." I stepped back, inviting her in, but she stayed on the porch, her eyes flicking to the ground. "Robert, I don't mean to pry," she said, her tone careful, "but people are talking. They say you're being harsh on Liam. Trying to take their home. Is it true?" Her words were soft, but they cut, each one a reminder of the lies spreading like wildfire. I set the pie on the hall table, my jaw tight. "It's not about hurting them, Mary," I said, my voice steady but low. "It's about what's fair. I paid for that house. They forgot that." She nodded, but her smile faltered, her hands twisting the hem of her sweater. "I get it. It's sad, you know? Family fighting like this." She turned to go, her footsteps fading down the path, leaving me with the pie and a weight in my chest. I closed the door, the lock clicking, and sank back onto the couch. The pie sat untouched, its sweet smell clashing with the bitterness in my throat. I thought of Liam as a boy. His small hand clutching a baseball, his laugh bright as we tossed it back and forth in the yard. I could still feel the sun on my face, the grass under my feet, his voice calling, "You're the best, Dad." Where had that boy gone? Had I pushed him away, or had he chosen this path? I needed to clear my head. I grabbed my jacket and walked to the park, the evening air cool, the streets alive with crickets. The park was quieter now, the swings still, the air sharp with the scent of pine. I sat on a bench, the wood rough under my hands, and stared at the empty field. The memory hit again, Liam running toward me, the ball sailing high, his grin wide. I'd caught it, tossed it back, and for a moment, we'd been perfect. Now he was a stranger, and I was fighting him with lawyers and lies. Lost in thought again? Ellen's voice was warm, pulling me back. She stood a few feet away, her scarf loose, her eyes soft but searching. She sat beside me, the bench creaking, and handed me a bottle of water. "You look like you're carrying the world, Robert." I took the bottle, my fingers cold against the plastic. "They're saying I'm cruel, Ellen. That I'm tearing the family apart. Even the neighbors believe it. My voice cracked, the weight of it spilling out. What if they're right? What if I'm doing this for the wrong reasons? She leaned closer, her hand resting on my arm, steady and sure. You're not cruel, she said, her voice firm. You gave them everything, and they threw it in your face. You're fighting for yourself, Robert. For the respect you deserve. Don't let their lies make you doubt that. I looked at her, her eyes fierce in the fading light, and felt the fog lift, just a little. It's hard, I admitted. I see Liam's face, his kid face, and I wonder if I'm breaking something I can't fix. You didn't break it, she said, her tone softer now. They did. And you're not alone in this. I'm here. We'll see it through. Her smile was small, but it was enough, a spark in the dark. We walked back to my house, the park fading behind us. Inside, I pulled the letter from Reese out of the drawer, its edges worn from handling. Ellen sat at the table, her presence a quiet anchor. What's next? She asked, her voice steady. I held the letter, my resolve hardening. I finished this, I said, my voice low but certain. No more doubts. They don't get to win. The house was still, the lamp casting long shadows, but I felt alive, ready. The fight wasn't over, but I was done questioning myself. The courtroom smelled of polish and old paper, the air heavy with anticipation. I sat on the wooden bench, my hands clasped, the knot of my tie pressing against my throat. The room was stark, high ceilings, rows of empty seats, the judge's bench looming like a throne. It was late July, the windows letting in slants of gray light, the hum of the city muted beyond the glass. My lawyer, Reese, sat beside me, his briefcase open, papers neatly stacked. Across the aisle, Liam and Olivia sat stiffly, their faces drawn, their lawyer whispering in low tones. Ellen was in the back row, her nod a quiet strength. I adjusted my cuffs, my heart steady but loud, every beat a reminder of what was at stake. The judge entered, her robe swishing, and the room stood, the rustle of movement sharp in the silence. She sat, her glasses glinting, and called the case. Reese stood, his voice clear as he laid out the facts, my payments for the house, Liam's secret loans, the betrayal of trust. I watched the judge's face, impassive but attentive, her pen scratching notes. Liam's lawyer countered, his tone smooth, claiming I was vindictive, that the house was theirs by right. But the documents didn't lie. The checks, the bank statements, my signature, they were my voice, louder than any argument. The judge raised a hand, silencing the room. Mr. Cunningham, she said, her voice firm, you co-signed the mortgage and paid it in full. The defendant's loans, taken without your consent, violate the terms of that agreement. She paused, her eyes scanning the room, landing on Liam, then me. I rule in favor of the plaintiff. Mr. Cunningham is entitled to compensation for his investment, to be paid by the defendants or through the sale of the property. The gavel struck. A sharp crack that echoed in my chest. The room exhaled, murmurs rippling through the sparse crowd. Liam's head dropped, his hands gripping the table. Olivia covered her face, her shoulders trembling, her perfect facade gone. I sat still, my hands unclenching, the weight of years lifting. I'd won. Not just the house, but my dignity, my truth. Reese clapped my shoulder, his smile brief but genuine. You did it, Robert. I nodded, my throat tight, but I didn't speak. The victory was real, but it wasn't joy I felt, it was release, a door opening after years of being locked. As the courtroom emptied, Liam and Olivia approached, their steps hesitant. Liam's tie was crooked, his eyes red. Olivia's makeup was flawless, but her hands shook, her purse clutched tight. Dad, Liam said, his voice low, breaking. We're sorry. We didn't mean for it to go this far. We were wrong. Olivia nodded, her voice soft, almost fragile. Please, Robert. Forgive us. We can work this out, as a family. Her eyes met mine, pleading, but I saw the calculation behind them, the fear of losing more than just the house. I stood, my movements slow, deliberate. I thought of the barbecue, the park, the toy car left on the bench. I thought of the boy who called me his hero, and the man who called me a stump. You made your choices, I said, my voice calm, final. I've made mine. I forgive you, but I'm done carrying your weight. I turned, my shoes clicking on the polished floor, and walked away, their silence heavy behind me. Outside, the Chicago air was warm, the city alive with horns and footsteps. I stood on the courthouse steps, the key to my own house heavy in my pocket, its familiar shape grounding me. Ellen joined me, her hand brushing my arm, her smile quiet but proud. "You're free, Robert," she said, her voice warm. I nodded, breathing deeply, the air clean and sharp. The house, the loans, the lies, they were behind me. I'd fought for myself, and I'd won. The key in my pocket felt like a promise, a new start. I looked at the horizon, the city stretching out, and felt the weight of years fall away. The living room was bright, sunlight streaming through the windows, painting the worn floorboards gold. I stood by the coffee table, a suitcase open at my feet, clothes folded neatly inside. An atlas lay beside it, pages dog-eared, red ink circling a route along Lake Michigan. A postcard from a travel agency sat on top, its glossy photo of a lakeside cabin promising quiet days and open skies. It was August, the air warm with the scent of fresh paint. I'd finally fixed the walls, a small act of reclaiming my space. The house felt alive, not a museum of regrets but a home, mine. I tucked a sweater into the suitcase, my hand steady, a smile tugging at my lips. The trial was over, the weight of it gone. I'd won more than a judgment, I'd won myself. The key to my house, now free of Liam's shadow, hung on a hook by the door, its brass catching the light. I glanced at it, the small, familiar shape a reminder of what I'd fought for. Not just a house, but a life I could choose. A knock at the door broke my thoughts, soft but eager. I opened it to find Tommy and Lily, my grandkids, standing on the porch, their nanny a step behind. Tommy held a drawing, crayon lines wobbly but bright, a house, a sun, for stick figures smiling. Lily clutched her doll, her eyes shy but warm. "Grandpa," Tommy said, his voice small, "we made this for you." I knelt, my knees creaking, and took the drawing, my chest tight. "This is beautiful," I said, my voice soft. "You two are artists." Lily stepped forward, her arms wrapping around my neck, her hug quick but real. Tommy joined, his small hand patting my shoulder. I held them close, the smell of crayons and sunshine grounding me. The nanny smiled, her nod approving, and I saw no fear in their eyes, only trust. "We heard you're going on a trip," Lily said, pulling back, her doll swinging. "Will you bring us something?" I laughed, the sound easy, free. "You bet. Maybe a rock from the lake, or a story." They grinned, their laughter like music, and I felt the ache of the past month's ease. Liam and Olivia hadn't come, they'd sent the kids. A tentative bridge. I didn't ask about them, didn't need to. This moment, with Tommy and Lily, was enough. Later, I met Ellen at a restaurant down the street, a cozy place with checkered tablecloths and the clink of dishes. We sat by a window, the evening light soft, the smell of bread and wine warm in the air. Ellen's gray hair was loose, her eyes sparkling as she raised a glass. "To adventures," she said, her voice bright. "And to you, Robert, for earning this." I clinked my glass against hers, the wine catching the light. "To us," I said, my smile real, unguarded. We talked about the trip, cabins, hikes, the open road. Her laugh was infectious, her hand brushing mine across the table, a warmth I hadn't expected but welcomed. "Lake Michigan's waiting," she said, her tone teasing. "Think you can keep up with me?" "Watch me," I shot back, and we laughed, the sound blending with the restaurant's hum. The future felt open, not a burden but a gift. I thought of the atlas, the postcard, the road ahead. I wasn't running from the past, I was building something new. Back home, I stood on the porch, the suitcase packed, the postcard in my hand. The sunset painted the sky pink and gold, the suburb quiet, the air cool against my skin. I thought of Liam, his apologies, his choices. I thought of Olivia, her lies, her defeat. I thought of the house I'd paid for, the one I'd let go. And I thought of myself, the man I'd become, not a stump, but a root, strong and steady. I'd fought for respect, and I'd won it, not from them but for myself. The postcard crinkled in my hand, its promise clear. Tomorrow would be a new day, and I was ready for it. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.